Tonight, airlines battle to recover from an air traffic control glitch. Thousands affected as technical problems bring turbulence to UK skies for the second time in 2 years. The desperate danger scramble for aid dropped over Gaza as President Trump sends his envoy back to Israel after warnings the war is causing a famine. A Sky News investigation, the data showing Gaza's deadliest days have been linked by patterns of attacks on families. Our data and forensics correspondent Tom Cheshire will be here to explain his special report. Also tonight, one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded sends waves and warnings rippling around the Pacific. Clouds of uncertainty envelop Lesotho, threatened by US tariffs and losing vital weapons against HIV/AIDS. Also, he's made a life out of feeding people. Now Palestinian chef Sami Tamimi tells me how he sees food being used as a weapon of war in Gaza. That and more coming up in The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. We begin with a developing story tonight. Airlines attempting to recover from an air traffic control fault, flights that disrupted some of the world's busiest skies over the UK. The glitch itself was only brief, but it's been enough to affect thousands of travellers. Well, our correspondent, Oliver Whitfield-Miocic, is at London Gatwick for us. And Oliver, it seems to be brought under control now, but it did disrupt things for many hours.
Yes, it did, with passengers stuck on aeroplanes for, in some cases, 2, 3, even more hours waiting to take off, with confusion reigning as to why it was they weren't allowed to get into the air. Now, as you can hear behind me, planes are taking off once again. That's because NATS, which is the private air traffic control company which regulates the skies here in the United Kingdom, says that its systems are back up and running. It's working with airlines to try to get the backlog sorted as quickly as possible. According to the aviation analyst company Cirium, there's been more than 100 flights to and from the UK cancelled. 67 departures were axed and about 55 arrivals have been cancelled, and even by conservative estimates, that's around 15,000 passengers that could have been affected. All of that comes at a cost to the airlines, who are liable to pay for hotels and food and telecommunications for those passengers back home to their family members. So, little surprise then that the likes of Ryanair are very angry with NATS and is calling for the head of that company to stand down. Here is what Dara Brady told Sky News earlier on.
Well, ultimately, if you can't do the job, well, then you move over and let somebody else do it. This isn't the first time that we've had an issue. It's not a once-off. We've had repeated patterns, even going back to the end of May, where we had delays due to short staff. We have it today where we've got 8 diversions now, and we're over 1,500 passengers have to be reaccommodated, plans disrupted, and all of this could be avoidable. The infrastructure needs investment, and if Martin isn't going to do the job and fix it, well, then he should move over and let somebody else do it, frankly. It's not acceptable that airlines like Ryanair and others are having now to divert flights into other countries on the back of a system technical failure.
Yalda, it's still not clear what exactly that technical failure is. This has happened at the worst time of the year, with the summer getaway well and truly underway. The only silver lining from this is it's happened midweek as opposed to happening on a weekend.
Oliver, thank you so much for bringing us up to date. Now, it was this week in Scotland that Donald Trump said there is real starvation in Gaza and it cannot be faked. Well, tonight, the president's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is being dispatched to Israel. But his recent record in this war isn't good. Gaza is teetering towards famine and ceasefire talks are at a standstill. Add to that a shifting diplomatic picture. The UK says it plans to recognise a Palestinian state with conditions, a move that's put the Prime Minister at odds with Donald Trump and angered Israel's government. Our correspondent in Jerusalem, Sally Lockwood, has been getting reaction from Israelis on the street.
This is a new and unprecedented reality for Israelis. a sense they're losing support from traditional allies, while still living in fear after October the 7th. Criticism over the war in Gaza is growing inside Israel, but here in Jerusalem, it's a very different picture. And Keir Starmer's involvement is deeply unwelcome.
I think that the British have interfered in the Middle East for far too much and far too long.
It's not real what you see on the informations.
So the images we're seeing on television coming out of Gaza aren't real, is that what you're saying?
Well, yes.
We give him a food, clothes, everything they need, and they're still killing us, and we give him things they need.
But Israel is also killing a lot of Palestinians as well.
It's not true.
While much of the Israeli media doesn't show the harrowing images from Gaza, they're being streamed around the world. Palestinians starved and stripped of their humanity. So appalled by the situation, it's prompted key allies like the UK to announce recognition of Palestinian statehood if it doesn't stop. Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert understands this decision by the British, but says it's complex and stopping the war is the more urgent issue.
Israel is in complete control of Gaza. No one will tell me that we can devastate Iran 1,200 miles from the shores of Israel, and we can't make all the necessary technical logistical arrangements to provide food in the 20 kilometers from Israel. There is one person in the entire world which has the power to force it on Netanyahu, and this is Donald J. Trump. What he needs to do is to summon Bibi to the Oval Office and to say to him, Netanyahu, game is over. Enough is enough.
Just a short drive from Jerusalem, the occupied West Bank is physically divided by this wall. That, along with Gaza and East Jerusalem, has long been envisioned as part of a future Palestinian state. But the current Israeli government outright rejects the idea of a two-state solution and has said Keir Starmer's announcement rewards terrorism.
The reality is this move by the UK government doesn't change anything in the West Bank, it doesn't change anything in Gaza, and it doesn't stop the war. Some say strategically this has been really badly handled by the UK, that this was the wrong timing and they should have pushed for a ceasefire first.
Hostage families are furious, saying the UK's conditions disincentivise Hamas from ending the war.
If there is no ceasefire, there will be a state of Palestine, and the state of Palestine will continue to be at war with the state of Israel. The logic in this document is entirely faulty, and it's got all the feel of something being rushed out to placate whoever has been shouting loudest.
Donald Trump's envoy is returning to Israel for the first time in 3 months. Steve Witkoff is due to visit aid centres in Gaza. This comes as we receive reports of hospitals overrun with casualties from aid sites. The question is what Trump's envoy will report back to Washington after seeing Gaza firsthand. Sally Lockwood, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Well, the idea of establishing a Palestinian state alongside Israel has long faced obstacles, and these have only grown with time. The Palestinians want it to include Gaza, the occupied West Bank, and occupied East Jerusalem, shaded here in red, which Israel captured in the 1967 war. The green line set out Israel's de facto border before that war. And many believe the borders of a future Palestinian state should be those that existed pre-1967. But over the decades, increasing numbers of Israeli settlements considered illegal under international law have been established in the West Bank. Then there are accepted criteria that have to be met for the world to recognise a new state. These include there being a permanent population, a defined territory and diplomatic processes like embassies, for example. News of the Prime Minister's recognition plan came through as Richard Engel and I were recording the latest episode of Our World podcast. Scan the QR code on your screen to get it. And Keir Starmer says he wants to pressure Israel. We discussed what could be more effective ways to do that. Have a listen.
Rather than saying we're going to create another state here, and recognize, sure, but why don't you do what you're doing behind the scenes, and have an arms embargo today, tell Israel, if by the end of this month you don't let the food aid in, and stop, with the bombing campaign of the people of Gaza, we are going to stop sending you the ammunitions, the aid, the support, the money that you need to continue this campaign.
And I think it will only come when enough Israelis think this is harming them. This is harming Israel's long-term future, long-term viability. I think you'll really only see a change when the Israelis realize this is going to backfire. This is going to backfire against us. We're never going to be able to live this one down. This is doing more harm than good.
That's our podcast, The World, and the QR code is on your screen. Now to what a Sky News data and forensics investigation has found to be a pattern of deadly attacks on Gaza families. The trends have emerged in numbers shared exclusively with Sky News by Gaza's health ministry, which yesterday announced that 60,000 have been killed in the territory since the start of the war. The Hamas-run ministry is seen by the UN and other international organisations as the most reliable source of casualties statistics. Here's our data and forensics correspondent, Tom Cheshire.
The sheer number of deaths in Gaza is bleak and horrifying, and it also tells the story of this grim war. Sky News has been given exclusive data showing every Palestinian who has been killed in Gaza since the war began. It's from the Gaza Health Ministry. Israel disputes this data, saying the ministry is run by Hamas, and it's criticised the numbers for not distinguishing between fighters and civilians. But Sky News has independently verified the data, which includes names and, for the first time, dates of death. That helps us to understand how the war has unfolded, how Israel has pursued its targets, and which have been Gaza's deadliest days. This is Ahmed al-Hatta. He was Hamas's justice minister, and he was killed when an Israeli airstrike hit his home in the early hours of Tuesday, the 18th of March. But also killed in the strike were his wife Fatima and 6 of their children. The youngest, twin girls, Banan and Janan, aged just 6 years old. While Ahmed was a clear Israeli target, his family were the collateral damage of that morning's attack. That Tuesday, the 18th of March, was the day that Israel broke a fragile ceasefire. By sunrise at 6 a.m., at least 242 people had already been killed. But by the end of the day, that number stood at 465 people, making the 18th of March one of the deadliest days of the war. And since then, more than 8,500 people have been killed in Gaza. The al-Hatta family we mentioned at the start, here in green. They are just one family among thousands of people who have been killed. And they are among more than 60,000 Palestinians who have died since the start of the conflict on October the 7th, 2023. Now, this is the full data set of every death per day since the war began. The numbers here paint a very clear picture of how the conflict has evolved over the last 21 months. And here in green, you can see the deadliest days of the conflict, days when there have been more than 450 deaths. Most of those at the start of the conflict. There have been 17 of them in total since October the 7th. We found a pattern here in the data. On every one of these deadliest days, there was a larger share of people who were killed alongside their family members. On average, 44%, nearly half of people who died were killed alongside at least one family member, compared to 30% on the other less deadly days. So our analysis of this pattern suggests that entire families were killed in their homes or in shelters, likely while they were sleeping. Let's go back to March the 18th. You can see here is the ceasefire. There are fewer deaths before it and then a big jump in deaths. On the 18th itself, 62% of people were killed alongside at least one family member. That is the highest family strike share of the whole war. And when we take a closer look at the number of those who died that day, you can see that women and children make up 68% of the total. We've investigated each of these deaths in the data against social media posts and footage from the day, geolocating as many pieces of video as possible to show the impact of the violence and to verify what happened that day. Like the Jargoon family. Aid Jargoon and his cousin Mina Jargoon were both killed alongside their families at Aid's home in Rafah. This video, verified by Sky News, shows some of their bodies being retrieved from the rubble. 17 family members were killed in total that day. The IDF told Sky News that one family member, Jihad Jargoon, run a Hamas weapons workshop. We haven't been able to independently verify this. This is where it happened. Rafah in the south of Gaza, those are the bodies being carried out there. But this was just one of 30 strikes and incidents we've been able to geolocate across Gaza, all on that same day. Now, in response to our findings, the IDF said it was targeting Hamas and that it instructs its commanders to apply the basic rule of the law of armed conflict, particularly of distinction and proportionality. But most of those killed, as we said, were women and children. And all of that, well, that is just one day out of the hundreds of this war and the tens of thousands of Palestinian deaths it has caused and continues to cause in the absence of a ceasefire.
And Tom joins me now. Extraordinary investigation by you and the data and forensics team there, Tom. Just looking at that graph, I mean, it's quite extraordinary to see the peak right after October 7, and it has been horrific throughout. But you also believe, and the team believes, that these numbers could be conservative.
Yeah, because when it comes to these numbers, there's always a lot of controversy from Israel, from the US as well, about how can we trust Hamas, which is a terrorist organisation. Generally on that, these numbers have proven correct in previous conflicts. They've come to similar estimates from the UN or Israel itself after that's happened. Specifically for this, though, this data, we looked at that one day, Tuesday, the 18th of March, 465 deaths. And when we looked at that, we saw there was one incorrect ID number. So they have ID numbers which are part of these lists, which actually are signed by Israel, and that's how people can check. There are 26 which were on the wrong day. They were other deaths. And then when we looked at those, we were happy that 92% of those were accurate. We compared it with social media posts, so we're pretty sure about the reliability. But we also found there were more than 60 other deaths, 69 deaths that weren't included in those figures. So I think what this list looks like is it looks reliable but conservative. There are probably more deaths that haven't been counted for here.
Wow. And, as you said, there's been a lot of dispute around these numbers, but these are the sorts of numbers, and the Gaza Health Ministry has been the ministry that for decades everyone has relied on. But in this particular war, it's become so controversial, the discussions around the numbers. But, over the course of the last year, Tom, we've seen Israel launch airstrikes in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iran most recently. And they've talked about the fact, and they've commended their Air Force for the precision strikes that they have launched. And yet we haven't been able to see that sort of thing in Gaza. Gaza is flattened today.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing from Sally Lockwood when she was doing that fly-in, wasn't allowed to point a camera out there because it is just completely pancaked. It's rubble. There's nothing there. And then when you go to Beirut and you see, a small puncture wound in a building, and even when there's really big strikes, when they assassinated Hassan Nasrallah, the former leader of Hezbollah, that was a huge strike and it took out sort of 3 apartment blocks, went really deep down. We went to the site. But that is Hassan Nasrallah, who was the leader of Hezbollah. What we're seeing is that sort of approach applied to it. And I think it was really striking on Tuesday, the 18th of March, when Israel broke that ceasefire. You had those days of fewer deaths. There were still deaths happening, but it was very, very isolated. Israel broke that ceasefire, and they knew that ceasefire would be broken, so they went really with everything they had. It was the deadliest day for a long time in that war. So I think that question of tactics, proportionality is a fair one. The IDF would say, look, we do aim to be proportionate, and of course, Hamas is still holding the hostages. There is an easy way to end that conflict if they were to give them up. But that day we saw where 68% of people who died were killed alongside family members, entire families wiped out. That looks like it was a deliberate tactic rather than just sort of the cost of war generally.
Tom, thank you so much. Now, here in the UK, a judge has ruled that Palestine Action can bring a High Court challenge against the group's banning as a terror organisation. Membership or support for Palestine Action has been made a criminal offence by the government, punishable by up to 14 years in prison. The ban followed the group claiming responsibility for damage to Royal Air Force planes. You're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Still to come on the programme. A massive earthquake off remote Russia sends waves across the Pacific, testing tsunami warnings.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
He did it very affectionately. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Leicester is on its knees.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
The founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Stephen Murphy and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back to the programme. A huge earthquake, one of the strongest ever recorded, set off a tsunami scare this morning in the Pacific, with waves rippling into Japan, Hawaii and the US West Coast. Now, the 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck off Russia's far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula around 12:30 a.m. UK time, which was late morning locally. Russia quickly issued a tsunami warning, and within the hour, waves of up to 4 meters were recorded hitting the Kamchatka Peninsula coast. Japan put out a warning around 1:30 a.m. UK time. People on Northern Ireland scrambled for higher ground with memories of the 2011 tsunami disaster. Half an hour later, Hawaii issued a warning and evacuation orders for some coastal areas. By 5 a.m. UK time, warnings had also been issued for California, parts of Alaska and the Philippines. And at 7 o'clock, waves of up to 1.7 metres hit the Hawaiian coast. 2 hours after that, bigger than usual waves were seen along the Californian coastline. Almost all the warnings have since been lifted or downgraded. Our science and technology editor, Tom Clark, explains how such a powerful earthquake passed relatively quietly.
Few people on Earth will have experienced an earthquake this powerful. Or one where the shaking seemed like it would never stop.
We saw people running out from houses. Everyone was running to the city square where we were because it was an open area. And then in 15 to 20 minutes, it started shaking again.
Cool heads kept a cancer patient safe during surgery in an 8.8 magnitude quake, the sixth most powerful in the last 2 centuries. Occurring on a fault notorious for causing tsunamis and where seismic stress has been building since the last mega quake here in 1952. The epicentre was here, just off the Kamchatka Peninsula, on the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, where the Pacific tectonic plate dives under the Okhotsk and North American plates. A tsunami's power comes from the fault on the seafloor, where tension builds on the moving plates. In this case, 6 metres worth of movement held back over 7 decades. When that tension is released, it causes a megathrust earthquake, a sudden upwards jolt of the seafloor that shifts the ocean sitting on top, sending a tsunami wave outwards. Close to the epicentre, like here in the Kuril Islands, a wave reported to be up to 5 metres surged inland. The lack of people in the region a likely factor in no fatalities being reported, at least so far. But tremors and rockfalls appeared to be just as terrifying to its sea lion population, filmed escaping into chaotic seas. Given the size of the quake, warnings were issued across the Pacific. Warnings heeded in Japan, hyper-vigilant following the 2011 tsunami that killed nearly 20,000 people.
I was very scared. The warnings were for all over Japan, so I was frankly scared.
The waves arrived but were mild compared to what this country has endured before. Hawaii, also on high alert, recorded waves approaching 6 feet, but warnings were quickly stood down. Huge quakes don't always cause tsunamis of corresponding size. This may be a near miss for millions living in the path of a potential wave, but a test of the Pacific's preparedness nonetheless. Tom Clark, Sky News.
This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, empty factories and workers on edge, how Donald Trump's tariffs have gripped the African country of Lesotho.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place, and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
President Donald Trump said no one has ever heard of Lesotho, and in a twist of tragic irony, it's his policies that have put the small southern African country in the global spotlight. He's threatened the kingdom with tariffs of 50% that's already pushed its lifeblood textile industry to the edge. 12,000 garment workers risk losing their jobs in what was once dubbed Africa's denim capital. Another 40,000 are under threat in related businesses. Our Africa correspondent Yusra El Begir reports from the capital, Maseru.
The sun has barely risen, but it's time to get to work. This early morning routine is a ritual for factory workers in Lesotho. Clocking into their shifts, grateful to still have a job. 200 people have been laid off from this denim factory alone, as the threat of Trump's tariffs dries up orders from the US.
Lesotho has long been called the denim capital of Africa, but that title is now at risk. Trump's tariffs threaten to upend the textile industry, which employs thousands of people in this small nation.
Well, the situation is bad. I think it's a global problem. President Trump, came up with these tariffs. So actually, it is a global problem. But for our small economy like Lesotho, we are really having a big challenge. A lot of jobs losses has been there, and then I can see more jobs going to be lost.
This harsh reality is looming over his employees, aware that their jobs could go in a heartbeat.
What would it mean for you if you lost your job?
Because I'm taking responsibility of my family. It's only me who's taking responsibility of my family. So I'm so scared about the job, losing the job.
I've got a message for America. Please, Ndade Trump, we are begging you. Please, Ndade, we are begging you. Have mercy on Lesotho, because everything comes from America. Our medication, our jobs, everything comes from America. America is our hope. If there is no help from America, we are dying.
Uncertainty is weighing on the Mountain Kingdom. Lives and livelihoods have been lost since Trump's return to power. Industry is on edge, and healthcare has been hit hard by US aid cuts. Lesotho has one of the highest rates of HIV in the world, and clinics like this one have had to cut off hundreds of patients from life-saving care. Funding for field teams has dried up. Only those who make it here can access HIV medicine. 15 patients from this center have died already.
Yes.
That is double the clinic's yearly fatality rate in only half the time.
It's sad. It's sad to see people dying due to the illness that that we can access medication, but due to Trump, they can't access medication. It's really sad.
Lesotho's rural areas are reeling from disease as its cities grapple with US-fueled unemployment. A mother of two tells us how life has been since she lost her job.
Life is so difficult. As we are getting that money from the factory, now we are no longer getting it, and we don't even know how to pay school fees.
How many people do you know who've lost their jobs at salaries in the last few weeks?
Many people. There are so many.
It's very hard for them because what the people what they want is the job. They want the job, nothing. Not the politics, nothing. They just want the job.
People are gathered at the gates of this textile factory, hoping that the Minister of Trade can save them from unemployment. He's here supporting the factory's expansion in a state of national disaster.
President Trump had a state of emergency
driven by US tariffs and aid cuts.
The people that are outside, they want to get inside. The ones that are inside, they want to stay inside. Yeah.
What's the solution? Are you talking to the Americans?
We are done talking. We are waiting for a response, a final solution from them. And this one, we understand is coming very soon, but we don't know how soon it's soon.
The daily rhythm of life in Lesotho has been disrupted by a global power thousands of miles away. And as hundreds leave work at the end of each day, they hope and pray their jobs will remain. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News, Lesotho.
Donald Trump's engagements with African countries and their leaders have raised eyebrows since he returned to the White House, from a gaffe with an English-speaking president to repeating unfounded claims of a white genocide in South Africa. Just take a look.
And we just want to thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you. And such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
Yes,
in Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
Sure.
Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No.
To be joined by the leaders of Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Ghana, Guinea, Namibia. Namibia's health system is increasingly self-sufficient. In the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of.
Well, joining me now is Lesotho's Minister of Trade and Industry, Moketi Shelile, who you saw there in Yusra's report. Thank you so much, Minister, for joining us here on the programme. You know, we just saw Donald Trump there, something the world saw when he said that no one has heard of your country, but something that started off as a joke is ending quite tragically for the people of Lesotho and for you as you try and scramble and come up with an alternative to the situation you're currently facing.
Thank you for having me. You're correct. It started like some sort of a joke, but it's no longer funny. It's quite sad. We have played the clip there. You can see that quite a lot of our compatriots are now out of work, and it impacts on real lives for people. Yeah.
Yeah. You said there in Yusra's piece that you've spoken to the Americans. Those talks have ended. Just talk us through what your expectations are now.
It's nothing less than to be given a tariff that will give us a fair chance to compete. Probably 10% will be okay for us. We can compete with that. Anything beyond that, we will not be able to compete.
And was that your message to President Trump, that this is too much for a small country like yours?
Yes, we have been talking with the USTR, not directly with President Trump, but the USTR, yeah.
And are they taking on board what you're saying?
I believe so. I believe so. People that we've had a chance to discuss our issues with understand quite clearly that we are a very small economy. We are not making any impact in terms of these trade deficits that seems to be a problem. So we are okay as far as we can see from the officials. But at the end of the day, everything else relies on the president.
Of course, like so many African nations, your country benefited too from the African Growth and Opportunity Act. And that's why we're seeing the sorts of ties and benefits that you're getting from this relationship with the United States, which is now at risk. But do you regret that you were so dependent on the US? And just listening to some of the workers in the factory begging the United States, begging Donald Trump to do something because their lives and livelihoods rely on it.
Yes, it looked very good in the beginning, quite promising, and we expected our industry to develop and go beyond the garment industry because of the impact that we were having from the US being available at that level where we're going to take things at zero rate under the AGOA. But this what is happening now. we cannot rely on the US anymore. That's the biggest problem that we have, and it's very sad.
What is your plan B now? Are you looking to, develop those trade ties with other countries that you may not have in the past?
Yes, plan A is to continue to push for a good tariff and maybe AGOA as well. That's plan A. Plan B is we are working very hard to diversify into other markets, and we are quite advanced in that area.
What markets are you currently looking at?
We have the Southern African Customs Union. It's a market that made out of 5 countries of the oldest union in the world. It's Lesotho, ourselves, and South Africa, which is the biggest economy around here, Eswatini, Botswana, and Namibia. That is a very promising market.
It's a promising market, but it's also a market that, these countries are facing US tariffs themselves.
Indeed. We are a customs union, and we have had discussions on how to deal with these US tariffs. And Lesotho happens to be one of the clips that was played here. The clip that was played right now says we're the gene capital of the world, or of Africa. We are quite advanced when it comes to garments, and we're ahead of most of our neighbors here, and we are the logical place to supply this region with clothing. Others, they can supply with other things. Namibia will have a certain strength, Botswana, and so on and so forth. So we are leveraging on each other's comparative advantage at this stage.
And finally, Minister, what is the worst case scenario for you right now that these trade talks, the tariffs that you're hoping for, doesn't happen? And where does that leave Lesotho?
It's already, that scenario is already playing out. The uncertainty that we have had over this 50% and 10%, our producers here, our factories, have already started to shut down. Most of them are already out of work because the buyers in the US were reluctant to give them work. So we are already living the nightmare. It's already happening.
Minister, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, the Palestinian chef Sami Tamimi tells how he's working to ensure his people's culture and traditional foods aren't lost in the ongoing war.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky Security and Defence Editor. Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. For people on the ground in Gaza, it isn't just material destruction that's unfolding before their eyes. It's the unravelling of their culture, whether it's through the food they make or the land they tend. Many are trying to keep the traditions alive. Palestinian chef Sami Tamimi aims to do just that in his new book, Bostani. I sat down with him earlier to discuss the inspiration behind his work and the ongoing conflict in his homeland. Just have a listen.
We're going to do a typical Gazan snack dish. They are broad beans falafels.
How long have you been a chef? When did you start your career?
Since I was born. No, I've been cooking now for the last probably 40 years. I'm 57, so I started when I was 17, yeah. So these are going in, just gonna put it on.
Have you picked up a lot of recipes from your mother and your grandmother and your family?
Yeah, always. I mean, I've been kind of borrowing a lot of my food memories are related to my mom and my aunties, and a lot of the recipes that I kind of been cooking all these years, for example, my mom's cauliflower and cumin fritters, or the musakhan, which is a chicken, roasted chicken. Yeah, it's really nice. And all these recipes have been just kind of handed down from one generation to another with my own kind of touches to each recipe, because I'm also representing the Palestinian kitchen, but also doing something that a little bit more doable for the West. I'm going to drop a few more of these.
Food is, from what I understand, such a massive part of Palestinian culture and tradition, and it's very much families sitting around a table and the whole, preparing the meal and the next meal. Once you've finished one meal, you're thinking about the next meal.
Pretty much, you're right. I mean, this is the kind of atmosphere that I grew up in, where, they are totally obsessed in a sense that they will always talk about, it's a bit like the Italians, where they will eat lunch, and while they eat, and they will talk about, what's next. But also the element of hospitality and, cooking for others and hosting dinners and lunches. And we had literally an open house. It took me years to kind of scale down cooking from 20 people to like 3, 4, 5. Because my mom always, we were 10 of us, and she would cook for 20, 25, sometimes 20, because you never know who's going to come in.
So just tell us about, this particular falafel, because it's from the southern part of Gaza?
Yeah, and it's because it's close to Egypt, and Egyptian falafel is kind of mixture of chickpea and broad beans, and they add a lot more dried spices that we don't normally, like coriander and cumin. But also typical Gazan dish that I thought it would be important.
So would you then have this with the pickles, or?
Yeah, these are addictive. And also chili. I mean, this is a beautiful thing because the longer you keep it, the kind of milder the flavor. And I like it spicy, so I don't wait. I just kind of go for it. Seasons are so short sometimes in Palestine, and they want to kind of preserve them in different ways, like things like tomato and aubergines. And so just to have them for the rest of the year, you kind of really find different ways to have them all year round.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Sami, I just want to get your assessment of what you've been seeing in Gaza over the course of the last 20 months or so.
I mean, I hope that it ends soon, because it's already been created this whole kind of 2 generations of trauma, but also displacement, and people that lost their entire families, or just imagine kind of these kids that been just meandering around this desert, Gaza, that used to be thriving a few months before that, using food as a weapon to basically torture and kill people. It's something that beyond my understanding, but at the same time, how did we get to this point? We only hear now, after almost 2.5 years, of all the horrendous things that Israel been doing in Gaza and the West Bank as well. That kind of, let's recognize Palestine as a state. This doesn't help. I mean, you need to go down and help the people that are trapped in cages. We are people that thrive in and want to live and celebrate the food, the seasonality, the foraging, farming as well. People have, in the past lived from the land and from farming, and with time, these things are kind of getting stripped from them. At the moment, when you say Palestinian or Palestine, you think of war zone and people mass killed, mass bombed. But actually, there is beyond that, Palestine, just to be also a beautiful country, it still is. And there are quite a lot of traditional aspects of it which related to food.
Do you think, part of the problem is that we have continued to see, especially Gazans, in these desperate circumstances, not just in this period, but in previous wars, in previous situations as well, that they have been dehumanized to the point where people don't quite understand this rich culture that the Palestinian people have, that's been preserved over generations. And yet the image that's being portrayed is a very different one.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, most people that are in Gaza, they're not originally from Gaza. They come from different parts of Palestine. They've been displaced into Gaza and then creating this open prison that didn't allow or control what comes in and out. And with all the horrible things that happened, they were also the greatest exporter of roses and strawberries and seafood. So again, I see this kind of really, really inspiring. You don't stop and just we are in prison.
Did you expect the international community to do more?
I think they did nothing. I mean, the opposite. They actually made it worse by supporting Israel and supplying weapons to Israel. And I think the West didn't do much to help the situation. Actually, the opposite. Only now they're starting to kind of think, maybe they went too far. But, I mean, 2.5 years, 75 years before that, nobody questioned what's happening back home in Palestine.
That was Sami Tamimi speaking to me a little earlier. Now, before we go, Birmingham brought together people from around the world today for the funeral of one of the city's most famous sons, Ozzy Osbourne. The hearse carrying the self-styled Prince of Darkness passed his childhood home on its way to the city centre. Black Sabbath frontman, who played a farewell gig in the city earlier this month, died at the age of 76 last Tuesday. And that's it from the programme. The News at 10 is next. Goodbye.